The Therapist and the Coach podcast is a space for real relational conversations about what it means to be human.
In a world obsessed with fixing, achieving, and self help, we invite you to pause, lean in, and discover the wisdom already inside.
Together, we explore how healing, growth, and transformation can happen not in isolation, but in connection.
Through open hearted dialogue, we challenge the myth of self regulation and self improvement, offering instead co regulation, psychological safety, and the power of being seen. How are you?
I'm really well today. The sun is shining, days are longer and brighter. My walks aren't so dark in the morning, which I
Yes.
love, but I also love to hear the sleepy birds. They're just waking up
Oh,
and they're like their
yes. Oh,
chirps
yeah.
are kind of
Yeah, with the
lazy and
forest awake. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that's just
yeah,
great.
it's really beautiful. How are you today?
The same as you. We're in the same region, so the sun is finally shining, and it's beautiful. And the sun, when it comes, it just makes your mood so much better. It's like
Mm,
everything is just nice. So I'm good. Thank you for asking. Yeah.
good. Well, thinking back to what we were discussing last, and we did have a brief chat before we started here, just with regards to, did we want to continue just because we said we were going to? Do we need to? And yeah, this topic of what's referred to, and I actually don't know who coined that term, imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
People talk, the fraud factor. There's different ways of discussing it, but I think what we really were addressing last time, or last podcast episode, was that it's part of the human condition. Maybe not everyone experiences it, and at the same time, it's a thing.
Yeah. It's
So
a
we
it's
felt
it's
like
a, it's a
talking
very
about
much a
that,
thing. Yeah.
and yeah, would
Yeah,
would be
yeah, and
useful.
I thought that just before we started, we kind of actually touched about that, and I thought that it is such a broad and area that goes to so many directions, but I also thought to tie it to self love, because it's so hard for so many of us, and I've lived that for many years like that, to like yourself when you need to protect yourself through sometimes lying, pretending, showing yourself in a different way. And it's just kind of get inside to a place where I'm broken, I'm not okay. So how can I be loved? I'm not loved. When we need to do something that is not us because it's not safe, and we constantly get barrage of threats, internal or external. It lays on you. You're not really actually fully you. Obviously, you can't be you. You can't be you at this situation. And so many times we drag that from very young age all the way to older age. And it's like a screw that you're getting in. And the more you're getting it in, the harder it is to get out. You kind of like buried, it feels like buried inside kind of that. And how can I right now do something else or be something else or even tell something else? Let's say that you went with a lie about yourself or pretending or exaggerating. I used to have this tendency to show how, I'm more than than actually is, in terms of not what I'm more. It's like I would try to exaggerate things about myself so
Mhm.
people would like me, and I will be like, people would look at me rather, because just if I am just who I am, why would anybody look at me? I'm now, that might not be true in reality, but it was true in my reality inside. And then we're getting shamed. We are shamed. We feel the shame inside, which is huge. Shame is huge. And we walk with that in the world with different hats, wearing different, suits that or skirts or whatever it is that we need to
Mhm.
be at that point of time. And it's not easy to be us, that person at that point of time. It's just really not easy. And so many people are reacting to that in oh my god, it's very interesting. I saw a documentary yesterday. I don't remember the name of it, but it was about a cult, a lady that was actually went to Utah to one of the cults, that their leader was arrested for so many bad things that he did with minors and all of that. And she dedicated her world. She just went into that uh place where their leader is gone and they're still living in under that without a leader or anything, and actually felt the sense that she needs to be at that place because she went in her childhood through the whole cult thing,
Mm-hmm.
and she felt the really sense of purpose to just be with these people rather than judge them. And throughout the movie, she is also exposed and documenting with her husband the the a newcomer of a prophet, so to speak, that is doing the same thing that the previous one did, and she has to form relationship with them while knowing, so because she that's the only way she could help is just getting in like a FBI agent in a way, but she did it on her own. She didn't have any, there was nothing to do with the authorities. And you see her capacity, which was so rare because as viewers, I'm usually then again have empathy to many people, regardless what they did or didn't do. I don't have so many times empathy to the actions, but I kind of asking like, what happened to them? What's happening to them that they needed? So we're stuck in that they did or what they didn't, without able to first of all also to understand them in order to help, in order to communicate, because it must be, all the women there and the children were hostages. They have no direction. We could easily judge them and say, you know what, it's crazy what you're thinking right now. But and then you see kind of like you see after, because the documentary was after, was during few years they were filmed, and you can see the women talking like they were possessed. They were basically held, their identity held by that prophet. We used them, and when you look at it, you say like, I looked at it like, my goodness, how can you see that way? And then you understand. You look inside about their history, about the way they grew, with the message that they got, the way they were molded, their whole identity. They had no identity, and then it's easier to understand and not to judge, because even now, or even the people that are bad people, so to speak, the ones that are doing that have history underneath that. They have narcissistic needs that were never met, that now they are doing that. Yes, they're hurting other people, but in order to really help society, we cannot really go with the ping pong of try to punish and to eradicate by action, while not really actually helping the people from both sides, both the victim and the perpetrator. Because underneath that, there's really underneath that, if you look there out in their brain, we look at the same kind of like position, where this one protecting themselves, it like, people that were cut, they are cops, could be easily so many times on the other side of the fence. And somehow, as you used to say, they made a choice to go to this way, but it could easily go to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
And we can tend to judge, this is bad, this is good. The reality underneath that, it's really the same. There are people that went through a lot, and through understanding, and I'm saying all of that for the syndrome that we're talking about today, that this is very hard for the person that experienced it to get out of the shame, because now how can I come up with the truth, so to speak? I don't even, it was terrifying from the beginning. You got a trajectory that is safe, so to speak, but you don't have yourself even, and you can't really ever manifest in that. So I thought it was kind of, and how can you love yourself when you are never accepted for who you are by society, by your parents, but in that way or another?
Wow. Yes. So much has come back also as you're talking. I love how your story, or what you've shared about this documentary and all you've shared, illustrates and brings us back to what the metaphor that you brought forward in the last podcast episode, which was the tree that was bending. Like you're saying that, okay, these people grew up in this space, or they didn't know that they were a tree that was bent. They didn't know that straight was an option. But that's actually the
True.
way that we are
That's
meant.
exactly right. That's
If we're
exactly right.
nurtured and the environment
Yeah.
supports the innateness that's inherent within all of us to be a straight tree, if the environment doesn't support that, the tree is growing, on an
Right.
angle and doesn't know it. And I
Right.
think that is a really important piece to highlight, is the being immune to the original, what I'm going to use some language here because I think sometimes language is useful. I definitely use language in coaching a lot, and I'm guessing you do in therapy too. Naming something, there's power in that. And some people react really strongly to this language. And I always invite people, if your reaction is strong, there's something there for you to unpack or look at.
Look,
But the lies, we talked about lies last time too, the lies we pick up about ourselves, we might not even realize or recognize because of our age and because of our understanding. We're just there coping, looking to get our needs met and adapting to our environments and learning as we go. Right? It's all just organic, it's just the human
oh,
experience. But we
absolutely.
pick up these lies about ourselves for various reasons, but they're in service of getting our needs met. Like they do meet a need at that time.
100%.
The problem is that as we grow and we gain more capacity and or experience and have more choice, some people don't, like people in a commune or in that kind of environment you're talking about, that their choices are very limited because they're very
Right.
comfortable.
Right.
And so there's extremes within the environmental factors that
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
provide people the opportunity to see themselves or see that they're bending, like they're growing bent as opposed to straight.
And
But
they're bendy straight so many times and they don't even know that.
they don't know. They don't know. And I didn't know. Like I've got to be clear that it was really hard for me to, because when I married Brian, and I use Brian because he's been such a consistent, loving mirror for me that that I like trust. I didn't trust. I didn't even know that I didn't trust. I thought I was a very trusting person, but when it came down to truth about me being mirrored to me from my husband, somebody who I couldn't hide from, that was really, really difficult. I rejected that.
Yeah.
Or
Oh,
it
yeah.
was actually a truth about my family. And it resonated as true, but the reaction was so strong I couldn't let it in, and I made all kinds of reasons why. But again, like, so the ability to even see that I was growing sideways in certain areas, I was
Right.
straight in some and
Right.
bent in
Right.
others.
Right.
Because I was completely immune and I had this whole identity that I thought was my identity, but I didn't realize that I was growing at a skewed angle.
Why did you know? Yeah.
So that level of and it self-deception is, and it's not even
Yeah.
self-deception from the standpoint of it being like it's just like the organic,
Survival. It's
it just
survival.
happened.
It's just survival.
And so I see myself in these ways. I inflate my values, I inflate my version of myself that I think people want to see, but the fact is that all that effort, whatever mindset or whatever way of being or whatever identity or ways I got to get my needs met when I was younger, we carry them, like you mentioned this too, we carry them into adulthood,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
they
yeah.
actually aren't needed anymore in the same way. So we're doing all this effort to get these needs met, and then, oh, guess what? It's not working. because and that becomes a problem because I don't know anything else and I'm immune to how I've been perpetuating the very
Yeah.
things sometimes that I'm complaining about.
Right, right. So you're basically talking about even something much earlier that we kind of explained what can happen, but you said something so true that we didn't touch on is that so many of us, so many people don't have the awareness because that's all they know. It's their Truman Show, It's that
Oh
it's
God.
that bubble of what they know. And it was actually in this documentary, you can see the ladies that were in the cult with that mindset of what we're told for them, who they are and what you need to be, not to have their own thinking. And they were completely engulfed in it. They had no clue. And it is so true to just first of all, maybe kind of like the message here first is to kind of sit with yourself and say, if you didn't have any restrictions in your life, nobody would judge you, nobody would that. What are you holding inside that that only you know about you? And only you kind of like if you had to fantasize even about what it would be to be that, what you want to do with your life, what you want to that, and is it possible, was it possible, just to kind of like also opening the vista of being with what it is rather than even try to do anything about that. Because first come awareness, right? We need to be
Yeah.
aware of
Well,
things that we want to change.
and I want to add to that basket that you're just offering as a place to start reflecting. It's it's also what part, what are the parts of you that you think are unacceptable or you hide
Yes.
from
Yes.
it, that you work
Yes.
because you're
Yes.
afraid that
Yeah.
you will be judged, that you're afraid, like, so what parts of yourself, or
Exactly.
what
It is so,
what
it's so interesting. It's like, it reminds me something that it just came to my mind. It's something even small, but it's not that small. I remember going one time with a friend of mine, a girl that I knew for a long time. She was very subdued and she was very intellectual and she was very like almost nerdy. But something about her also, when she was with me, she was not. So I loved her exactly the way she was. And one time I said, like, did you ever dance? She said, "Oh no, I'm not going to these clubs and all of that." And she had all these things, and she was really scared inside. It almost was not her. And I said, "Why don't you come with me for?" I enjoyed at the time to just go and free dance and
yeah.
go to dance music and just go and have fun. And I said, "Why don't you go with me?" And she trusted me. She knew, she knew she could trust me. And so we went, and at some point I just dragged her into that. She was kind of like that, and you kind of hearing that she's standing there, and I'm on the dancing floor, and I'm not pushing, I'm not that, and you can see her start kind of moving a little bit, and you can see that she's like that. By the end of the evening, that girl was with me. We were just with hands all over it. It's just like I said, like, it was so good to see you. And she was surprised. And I said, like, are you really surprised though? Because I talked to her about that.
Yeah.
And she's a psychologist too. And so she said, like, you know what? I'm not, but it's something that was taken away from me since I was very, very young. That was not the trajectory of my home. I wasn't to be with my books. That trajectory, how I was praised as human, was to perform into certain ways that unconsciously I picked up. And that girl, by the end of the evening, if you saw that, you would thought she was the extrovert of the world, and she had the fun
Love
of
it.
her life. And but it was kind of like, it was like I didn't know that I forgot who I was. And that was kind of like, she kind of said, she's a very spiritual girl, so she said, I forgot long time ago what I came with, who I was. So
Mm.
it's kind of like, it's kind of a small kind of that, but as you said, we're so many times don't even know that we are maybe way more than we think we are, but we had to, in a big way and sometimes in small ways, didn't even try because it was
Mm.
not allowed. It wasn't the trajectory that the tree was bent in order to see. We were put in where we were born and where we need to be, and the tree grew like this rather than allowing us to grow the way we want.
So your story, and bringing the tree back into that story, we're coming back to that metaphor. We'll just continue to expand that. But the tree that is bent and the tree that is straight still have ground.
Yeah.
It is grounded in the earth. There is an anchor point. There is
Yes.
at where that is rooted. And
Yes.
whether it's now, I don't know what happens if you're, bending on a slant. Do the roots grow on a slant? I don't know, but there's still roots in the ground. And I don't mean to plug this, but it's relevant. So I've just published on Amazon.ca,
And that was lovely.
and
Will you also read to the audience what you just read to me before that about that, because it was beautiful.
okay, I will. I was going to read the dedication because it completely, it's just a few sentences, but so the book
Yes.
is Soul Designs: Finding Your Way Home. And you were talking about returning. She returned to herself. She didn't even know that but she kind of knew. Like, there's a knowing. And then the subtitle here is a reflective guide to creating a practice of fierce honesty, vulnerability, and courage with oneself. Really is where it starts. And you brought in self-love earlier, so but how can I love myself if I don't even know that I don't love myself? Like, it's kind of an
Don't know even
interesting.
what true love is.
Yes, yes. So the dedication I was going to read is to the part of you that never stopped knowing, to the part of you that kept breathing beneath performance, to the part of you that waited patiently, faithfully for your return.
Mm,
Um,
that is
and
beautiful. This is
that, because
beautiful.
we all have that, like that,
We all
those
have that.
those roots, that's where the earth meet, where the tree, whether it's slanted or not, like that nature nurture conversation, there is an inherent soul design for each of us. Every tree is different, every snowflake is different, every bush is different, every animal, like we're all different and yet the same, which is
Exactly.
really why
Exactly.
I'm happy we're talking about this, because one of the things that breaks my heart is to think about the creative energy and life force, like life force, that is literally taken away from people or drained out of people to, and myself, I can, like, withholding these parts of ourselves
Oh yeah.
because we are afraid to let them be seen. So that we tuck them
Yes.
away. They're unacceptable. I will never do that. I'll never be humiliated again. I'll never
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
And yet to be seen is that
Yes.
incredible human offering.
Yes.
So is it still relevant for me to read what I read to
It's
you?
absolutely relevant because it's a gift what you read to me, and I think that everybody should hear it.
Okay. So this is at the end of the how to use this guide. And it's really the offering is, may this guide become a way of living, not simply a moment of insight, a daily devotion to what is true. May you learn to trust the signals in your body, the honesty in your longing, and the steadiness that arrives when you stop overriding yourself, all of yourself. uh, May your life become less about managing perceptions and more about inhabiting your own presence, choosing work, relationships, and rhythms that align with your soul design. May wholeness be your new normal. So your impact is not something you force, but something that naturally follows from being fully and apologetically you.
This is just so beautiful. This is so beautiful, and uh, people. How would people can get this,
Oh,
Lorraine?
so it is an offer. It's 17.99 Canadian. So that's probably about $3 American.
And
But I'm just kidding.
where people can get it?
Amazon.ca,
Okay,
paperback or Kindle. If you
okay.
look up Soul Designs, my name, Lorraine Giddick, it'll come up. Um,
And thank you for this offering because it is so beautifully written and beautifully done.
it was an
So
opportunity for
important.
me to to articulate what is it that I do, because I talk about it so poorly. It's so hard for me to talk about, and yet it was so easy for me to write about.
Yes.
And while not everybody can afford nor wants to hire a coach, I also wanted to make what I have available. I wanted to acknowledge it first and foremost, that I believe we all do have a soul
Yeah.
design, innately, inherently, uniquely our own contribution, but we never get a chance to figure that out. We come into the world with these things that fulfill us and these things that we naturally move towards, loving ourselves fully and each and every experience that we put ourselves into. And then we hear no, and then we oh well, we've got to go to school, and then like the conditioning, the environment takes over, and next thing you know, we're bending right, or we're growing left, or we're like, uprooting ourselves and going and planting ourselves in another field, all these things that we do to
You
contort, to belong, and for all those things we've talked about in other places.
definitely, definitely.
But to return home, like that the rooting, the
It's
grounding, the
always there. The
yes,
home
it's
we were born with,
always there.
it's always there.
And one of my first, like when I first started, when I was 21 and I started my self-reflective journey, like that's really, and it started in a counseling process. And then it moved into me becoming a counselor and a therapist, and doing the work and the education to get there was all very self-reflective. And one of my first therapist, he's an ex CSIS, like that's the CIA, like the Canadian CIA, and he just this huge daunting man, but just such a big bear of a human, but huge heart. Neil Douglas
Big teddy
Tubbs.
bear.
Yeah, Neil
Yeah.
Douglas Tubbs. was his name. And he said to me, you know, here is here is the challenge in being human. And he said, I know what I know, but I don't know what I don't know. And it's what I don't know that keeps biting me in the ass. And I like, that's so much for me to think about. Like, there's so much in there. I knew the biting in the ass part. Like I was
Yeah,
getting like that's why I was in therapy. But
yeah.
yeah, the I know what I know, but I don't know what I don't
So much and so much of the yes, and that's very humbling, and then
know.
again, the more I live and know and I'm studied and all of that and educated, the more I know how much I don't know, and it humbles me. But what I do know is that we came here for a purpose,
Mm.
to experience, to let ourselves be exactly how we are. And I feel that what we do, maybe we didn't get it in our environment, unfortunately, from very young. The ground on which they put the tree on was shaky. It reminds me that, Pisa, the building in
Yes,
Italy, right?
Leaning Tower
And
of
it's,
Pisa.
yeah,
Mm.
it's constantly, and so at the beginning, what they try to do is constantly, because it got tilted to a place where it can actually fall, physics, it's just gravity. And the beginning, they try to actually correct the building itself. And then they realize we're just putting so much effort in trying, we're hitting in the wrong place. Basically, we're not considering the right place because we try to really constantly erect it back, to push it back, where actually the ground underneath that
Mm.
was the problem. Because the whole area is full of water and muddy, and the ground is constantly shaking. So over the years, it tilted. So you can try actually to try to push the building back, which they tried with so many efforts and resources, and it will be might there for a second, but then it will go back because the ground underneath from which that tree building was put on is very shaky, not solid. So eventually they had to go underneath that, solidify the ground, where actually, in a way, the building now, it's not about the building, it was how the building had to be built, on what soil it was built, and then it got tilted. So it's the same thing that happened to us. We kind of grow it depends on the ground from which we are coming to this world, and we all have our own environments, with parents and environments that have been here for aeons, that with the trajectory of the trauma, that's how we are, the soil from which we are putting ourselves in, and grow. So, but we come with love. We come from
Mhm.
love. We're perfectly exactly how we are. And if we could little by little trust that, then then everything unfold naturally, just like it was bent naturally. It wasn't naturally, but it was the relationship between ourselves, who we came, and the environment got us to become who we become, which is so many times we're not there anymore. To go back to the roots, underneath the roots, to solidify the trust that we
And
came with, then
nourish
nourished,
that. Yeah. Mhm.
and then something that we could not ever trust. That's why we had to lie. That's why we had to have this kind of pretentious, and to manipulate and to navigate in the world the way we could, the way we knew. So going back to the origin, which you could trust, it would be okay, that we could be who we are, that we could even untangled what we have done so far, if we have the support that we have right now between you and I right now, and invite people to say, you are loved exactly how you are. And you find the people that would have relationship with you rather than what you present. Because if you are, and we know so many times that we grew up to present something to be loved. Why would anybody love me just the way I am? And that's really hard to trust when you never had that experience. With that said, I know that if we are who we are, expansion is coming, creativity, joy with ease,
Abundance at all times.
abundance with
Mhm.
ease. So
With
I know we are
ease and
overtime,
flow.
right? I
Ease and
know that
flow.
we're overtime and we need to finish the podcast. But I think we need to probably also continue coming back to that, because so much coming from that also I'd like to, which we didn't have a chance, even though we had an incredible conversation, the neurobiology of it, what happens in our brain when that happens. That we can do next time.
Oh, okay. So I'm just going to jot that down because that's really important. And last time we also talked about having people join the conversation. We're still
Mhm.
working on what that looks like in the
On the
background
technicality of it.
because all we need is a way for people to sign up and get the link to join us.
Yes.
And again, we don't know what that's going to look like, and I encourage people to step into the unknown with us because we that's how this whole thing started. It's
We
we
can only
didn't know
say to
each
them,
other. We
we can only tell them that that whoever comes would be really loved, and we you will be in our kindness,
welcome.
environment of
They'll be
kindness and
welcome
love.
and
Yeah.
help. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Another topic that came up here, you talked about an narcissistic needs. It
Mm,
is something I want to address because it is something that
yeah.
is on the
Yes.
rise,
Yes.
is
Yes.
those
Yes.
experiencing those behaviors, and there is a continuum. There's the full-blown disorder, but there's also the behaviors that we run into that, and people might not be able to recognize that. And I think,
100%. We will have it. We will devote
okay,
at least one, because this is another big thing that is very much needs to be addressed within this context.
okay, so next time it's the neurobiology of this thing that we refer to as the imposter syndrome or fraud factor, or
Yes. And
we'll
then we'll
address
dive
that.
also into the narcissistic needs with that, because it's actually interconnected.
It's interconnected, and I thought it might be because you brought it up. And
Absolutely.
okay, so beautiful. So create a wonderful week. I'll look forward to our time together
The
next
same
week.
to you, and to
And
everybody who listened, and their families and their loved one, and even the one that they don't love, that are just also people that try to protect themselves, and hopefully without hurting anybody, but that happens. But I send love to everyone, every being. And thank you for being here with me, Lauren.
thank you. Bye for now.